I still remember the day I got the letter like it was yesterday. Sand and heat clung to my skin in that godforsaken desert, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. But nothing could have prepared me for what I read. My love has changed. I need something different. I'm sorry. That was it. That was her version of goodbye. After 8 years of marriage. After waiting for me through 2 deployments. After promising she'd always be there. I was in uniform, serving my country in the middle of a war zone, and back home. My wife, my ex-wife, now was sleeping with some guy she met at the gym. Let me back up a second. My name's Noha Morish. I enlisted at 19, straight out of high school. The Army gave me a purpose, a structure. I didn't come from much, just a busted-down neighborhood outside Atlanta, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, and still found a way to tuck me in every night. I swore I'd make something of myself, not just for me, but for the family I'd one day build, and I thought I had built that family. Her name was Sarah. We met at a cookout my buddy threw right before my first deployment. She was smart, funny, and had this way of looking at me like I was the only man in the room. I fell hard. We got married 6 months later. She stood by me while I did my time overseas, or at least I thought she did. When I got home on leave, everything seemed too perfect. She'd been working out, spending time with new friends, and posting pictures of her nights out like she was 21 again. I asked questions. She dodged them. I told myself not to be paranoid. I wanted to trust her. I needed to. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The letter came just 2 weeks before I was due to rotate back to the States. It wasn't even handwritten, just a Word doc she printed and stuffed into an envelope. Said she couldn't handle the distance anymore. Said she had changed. No mention of another man. No apology. Just a cold, corporate-style breakup. She filed for divorce the same week. I sat on my cot, numb. Rage built in my chest, so tight it was hard to breathe. I'd faced bullets, bomb threats, death itself, but nothing hit me harder than that betrayal. And the worst part, I didn't see it coming. That moment, sitting alone in the middle of nowhere. Thousands of miles from the woman I thought loved me, I changed. The man who returned home wasn't the same man who left. And she had no idea what that version of me was capable of. The flight home felt like a lifetime. I stared out the window, watching clouds drift by, my fingers clenched into fists so tight my knuckles cracked. My unit was celebrating we'd made it home alive, but me, I was landing in a different kind of war zone. When I walked into the house Sarah and I used to share, it didn't even feel like mine anymore. Half the furniture was gone. A few pictures still hung crooked on the wall, wedding photos, family vacations, birthdays, but they felt like ghosts mocking me. I found a stack of unopened bills on the counter. She hadn't even forwarded the mail. That was her final message. You don't live here anymore. I stood in the silence, listening to a house that used to be filled with laughter and lazy Sunday mornings. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I couldn't. Something inside me was locked up tight. All I could feel was pressure rage just beneath the surface, pressing against my ribs, demanding release. I spent the first few nights in that empty house, sleeping on the floor with my duffel bag as a pillow. I kept telling myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe there was something I missed. Maybe I deserved this. That's what you do when your world falls apart. You try to find the piece that broke you. Because blaming someone else is too painful at first. Then came the first sign. One morning, I went out to start her old SUV. It was still parked in the driveway, and I figured I'd sell it off to cover some of the bills. When I turned the key, her Bluetooth connected. I guess she never wiped her phone from the system. A name popped up on the dashboard screen. Eric. I just sat there, staring at that little emoji like it had slapped me in the face. Eric. The name sounded familiar. I opened her laptop, was still in the study, and started digging. Her email was logged in. Part of me hesitated, but let's be real, at that point, trust was long gone. That's when the pieces started falling into place. Dozens of emails, most of them gym class. Schedules and receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. One email in particular stopped me cold. It was from a guy named Erickson, a month before she mailed that letter. He'd written, "Can't wait until he's finally gone for good. I'm tired of sneaking around." My jaw clenched so tight, it ached. Sneaking around. While I was halfway across the world, dodging mortar shells and sleeping with my rifle. She was sneaking around with this clown from the gym. I kept digging. Her Instagram was public, and while she hadn't posted anything suspicious, I checked who was liking every picture. Sure enough, Eric commenting on photos from months ago. Little flame emojis, inside jokes, nicknames I didn't recognize. And here's what really got me. There was one picture she posted from our anniversary. Just a photo of wine glasses and candlelight, No faces, no details. But his comment. Best night of my life. That night had been our anniversary. I'd called her from base. She didn't answer. Told me later the connection was bad. But now, I knew she wasn't alone. She was with him. Still, I didn't have concrete proof. Nothing you could take to a lawyer or a judge and say, look, this is adultery. Just screenshots and gut feelings. But I knew. Every soldier knows what it feels like when the enemy is close. Your body goes on high alert. Your senses sharpen. And every cell in my body was screaming, she betrayed you. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I kept it buried, walking around with a fake smile, telling friends and family I was adjusting back to civilian life. They nodded sympathetically, talked about PTSD, told me to take my time, and I let them believe that was the issue. But the truth was darker than that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing with him. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her saying she'd made a mistake. It never was. I started driving by the gym, waiting in parking lots. I know how that sounds. Desperate, broken. But you've got to understand, I wasn't just trying to catch her. I was trying to understand how someone who once cried when I left for training could turn so cold. That's when I saw them. Together, in broad daylight, she stepped out of the gym, hair tied up, face glowing, and there he was, tall, smug, wearing one of those stupid sleeveless hoodies that screamed, I flex more than I think. He wrapped his arm around her like he owned her. She didn't even flinch. No guilt. No shame. She kissed him right there on the sidewalk, and that was the moment. I stopped hoping for an explanation. I didn't need more proof. I had all I needed. Now it was just a matter of deciding what to do with it. After seeing them together, something shifted in me. I wasn't just heartbroken. Anymore, I was focused. That numbness I'd been walking around with turned into a cold, calculating resolve. I wasn't about to fall apart. I wasn't going to scream, or beg, or confront them like some tragic rom-com. Scene in a rainstorm? No. I was going to outsmart them. The Army taught me one thing better than anything else: how to gather intel, stay patient, and strike when it mattered. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about clarity, closure, justice. If she wanted out of our marriage, fine. But she wasn't walking away clean. Not after this. The first thing I did was get legal. I called up an old buddy from Basic, Brent, after his discharge. He became a paralegal and now worked under one of the best divorce attorneys in Atlanta. I didn't tell him everything over the phone, just enough to make it clear this wasn't a friendly catch-up. He agreed to meet the next day. When I showed Brent the emails I found, the Instagram comments, the messages from Eric, he shook his head. This is emotional infidelity at the very least, he said. You got lucky. Georgia's one of the few states that still allow fault-based divorce. If you can prove adultery, you might walk away with more than just a clean break. That lit a fire in me. Now I had a mission. With Brent's help, I started gathering everything I could. First stop, our joint bank account. I hadn't really looked at it since deploying, just trusted that Sarah was handling things. Big mistake. Over the last 6 months of my deployment, nearly $14,000 had been withdrawn or transferred: restaurant bills, hotel stays, and spa visits. All while I was rationing meals and dodging shrapnel. She was living it up like she hit the damn lottery. One transaction caught my Aja weekend charge from a luxury resort in Tennessee. She'd told me she was visiting her aunt. I pulled the receipt. The reservation was under Sarah and Eric Green. Green, she was using his last name. Now, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't some rebound. She was playing house with this guy while still married to me, draining my money, building a fantasy life on the back of my service. That night, I went to the house, her old house. She wasn't there, probably at his place. I used the spare key she must have forgotten about and searched through the drawers in what used to be our bedroom. I found a notebook hidden in the back of her closet, behind old purses. It wasn't even locked, like she thought I'd never come back. Inside were pages of entries, ramblings about how she felt trapped being a military wife, how Eric made her feel young and alive. She even wrote about how she planned to convince me to agree to the divorce without contesting anything so she could avoid drama. She really thought I'd roll over, let her walk away without consequence, like I was just some footnote in her little midlife crisis romance. I took pictures of every page, emailed them to myself, backed them up on a hard drive. I didn't slam doors, didn't leave a trace. I wanted her to keep thinking I was broken, that I'd quietly fade away, sign the papers, and disappear. She didn't know I'd already started working with Brent's legal team. We were building a timeline, matching her travel receipts with my deployment dates, flagging every financial transaction tied to her affair. We even pulled cell phone records. There were hundreds of texts between them, some of them during the hours she'd told me she was grieving because she missed me so much. The evidence piled up fast. This wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated manipulation. And I was done playing the victim. Emotionally, I was still wrecked. Don't get me wrong. I had nights where I couldn't sleep, where the image of her with him looped in my head until I felt sick. I kept wondering, was she ever really mine? Was it all fake from the start? I'd lie on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember when exactly things started to go wrong. Was it the second deployment? Was it when I missed her birthday that one year because of training? Had I made her feel forgotten? But then, I'd go back to the notebook. To the lies. To the money she took, the life she built behind my back, and the pain would sharpen into clarity. No, this wasn't just about her being lonely. This was about her being selfish. About her taking everything we built and trading it in like it meant nothing. And if she thought she was going to get a quiet, easy divorce, she had no idea what was coming, because now I had the truth, and soon. So would everyone else thought. It was a clear Friday morning when I walked into the courthouse, wearing the same dress blues I wore the day I married her, not out of sentimentality but as a symbol. I wanted Sarah to look me in the eye and remember the man she vowed to love, honor, and never betray. The same man she threw away like yesterday's trash. Brent met me at the steps, briefcase in hand, suit sharp as a blade. "You ready for this?" he asked. I nodded once, born ready. We weren't just filing for divorce, that day we were filing for fault-based dissolution on the grounds of adultery, fraud, and financial misconduct. We had evidence, photos, bank statements, cell records, journal entries, and we had a plan. Sarah didn't know I'd be there in person. She arrived 10 minutes late, wearing a beige blazer, her hair in that same high ponytail she always wore when she was trying to look put together. But when she saw me, the uniform, her expression cracked for a split second, just long enough for me to see the panic underneath. Behind her trailed Eric. Of course he came, standing there with that arrogant, puffed-up chest like this was some movie premiere and not a courtroom. I didn't acknowledge either of them. Just stood tall, straight, eyes forward. Let them squirm. In the mediation room, her lawyer was the first to speak. Some smug, overpriced downtown type who opened with, "We're hoping to reach a peaceful and uncontested settlement, given the emotional toll on both parties." Brent didn't even flinch. "There won't be a peaceful settlement. We're submitting for full marital asset review, alimony denial based on adultery, and reimbursement of all joint account expenditures tied to extramarital activity. You want peaceful? We can give you quiet, but not mercy." Sarah looked at me then, finally speaking. "Marcus, this doesn't have to be ugly." I turned my eyes on her. "Steel cold ugly started when you emptied our savings and checked into a mountain resort with him while I was dodging mortars in Kandahar." Silence. Even her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Eric leaned forward. "Hey man," I cut him off, voice sharp. "Don't speak." I opened my folder and slid the contents across the table. Photos of their hotel check-ins, screenshots of their text messages, a printed page of her journal entry about her plan to manipulate the divorce. I watched her eyes dart across every page, her face draining of color. Her lawyer fumbled. We weren't informed there was this much documentation." Brent smiled without humor. "You didn't ask the right questions." The next hour was chaos. Her legal team tried to regroup, backtrack, minimize. But it was too late. Everything was on record now. She wasn't just losing the moral high ground, she was losing leverage. When it was over, the judge scheduled a hearing date. Brent leaned over and whispered, "She's going to try to settle before that day comes. She doesn't want this public." And he was right. 2 days later, I got an email from her. No apology, just a plea to end this quietly and protect what little dignity we both have left. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied with one sentence. "Dignity left when you chose him over us." But I wasn't done. 1 week later, I sent her mother an anonymous package copies of the receipts, photos, and journal entries. Then one to her cousin Lisa, the one who'd always called me the best thing that ever happened to Sarah. And one more to the gym where she and Eric met, where he was still working as a personal trainer. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because the truth had been buried long enough. She wanted to play house in the dark. I turned on the lights. The fallout was swift. Her family pulled away. Her mother called Mimai to apologize for raising a daughter who could be so heartless. Her social circle imploded. Word spread fast. And Eric, he got fired from the gym 2 days after the owner received the package. Apparently, fraternizing with married clients didn't look good on a community trainer's resume. Sarah called once more after that. I let it go to voicemail. "Marcus, I messed up. I know that now. I never meant to hurt you like this. I felt lost, and I took it out on the only person who ever really loved me. I'm sorry. I deleted it. No response. Because some things don't deserve closure. Some wounds don't get to be healed by the person who caused them. The court finalized the divorce in my favor. I kept the house, the car, and she had to repay a significant portion of the funds she drained ordered by the judge. Turns out, betrayal can come with a price tag. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel proud, but I did feel whole. For the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. Like the man I was before the lies, before the heartbreak. The man who built his life from the ground up and wasn't about to let anyone tear it down. She never saw it coming, and that was the sweetest part of all. The days after the court ruling moved in slow motion, like the air had thickened, and the world finally gave me a moment to breathe. For the first time in months, maybe years, I could walk into my house and not feel haunted. The silence didn't scream anymore. It felt like peace. Sarah moved in with her sister. Last I heard, her reputation in town took a nosedive after the truth came out. People talk, especially in small communities, and once the packages started circulating, everyone had a version of the story. The woman who once played doting army wife was now the center of whispers at grocery stores and side-eyes. At coffee shops. Eric didn't fare much better. His gym fired him without ceremony. Apparently, he'd crossed that line with more than one client, but my case was the tipping point. His fitness influencer dreams crumbled overnight. His Instagram went dark. No more flexing in front of mirrors, no more motivational captions. Just silence. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel satisfaction watching the fallout unfold. But it wasn't revenge. I craved it was acknowledgement. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That my pain meant something. That the lies weren't just swept under the rug while they lived happily ever after. What surprised me most was the shift in how people treated me. Sarah's friends, some of whom I thought would ghost me out of loyalty to her, actually reached out. A few apologized for not seeing what was going on. One even admitted she knew something felt off, but didn't want to get involved. Cowardice, masquerading as politeness. Still, I didn't hold it against them. Everyone processes betrayal differently. Emotionally, I was still wrecked in places. Some nights I'd find myself staring at old photos, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas mornings. Moments that once felt sacred now felt staged. I didn't miss her anymore. Not really. I missed the idea of who I thought she was. The version I built up in my head, the one who stayed loyal through deployments, who kissed me goodbye at airports with tears in her eyes. Turns out, she was crying because she knew what she was hiding. But with every day that passed, I felt lighter, stronger. I started going to therapy, something I'd avoided during my entire military career. Turns out, healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without breaking apart. I got back in touch with old friends. Started volunteering with vets who'd gone through similar heartbreak. There's something uniquely cruel about being betrayed while serving your country, like being stabbed in the back while guarding the front door. But talking about it helped. It reminded me I wasn't alone. And as for Sarah, she faded. Her calls stopped. Her emails dried up. Eventually, she became what she truly was all along, a chapter, a lesson, and I had finally turned the page. It's strange how rock bottom can become the foundation for something stronger. When Sarah first left me, I thought my world had ended. I thought I'd never be the same man again. In a way, I wasn't, but not in the way I feared. I didn't lose myself in the aftermath. I found myself. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the old house. It held too many memories, some beautiful, but most twisted by betrayal. I sold it and bought a modest place out in the country. Quiet, open space, where the night sky isn't drowned by city lights and every morning feels like a reset. I started working with a nonprofit that helps returning veterans transition back into civilian life. Not just with jobs or housing, but with emotional support. Real conversations. I told my story to guys who had that same haunted look in their eyes, the look of a man who gave everything to something or someone, only to be left with nothing but scars. And slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt my sense of worth. Therapy helped me uncover the stuff I'd buried deep even before Sarah. Growing up without a father, carrying the weight of responsibility since I was a kid, always feeling like I had to earn love, I realized that's part of why I clung to her so tightly, even when the signs were flashing red. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to admit I'd given my heart to someone who never deserved it. But failure isn't falling, it's staying down. And I didn't stay down. Physically. I got back in shape. Not out of anger, or to prove anything, but because I wanted to feel good in my own skin again. I started running at dawn, hitting the gym, eating better. It felt like reclaiming control over my own story. I even started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just conversations, coffees, walks in the park, no expectations, no illusions, just human connection. And it surprised me how healing that was. Not because I was trying to replace Sarah, but because I was learning to show up fully as me, no longer hiding behind the role of husband or soldier. Just Marcus. One woman in particular, Claire, caught my attention. She's a nurse, funny, kind, a little sarcastic in the best way. She didn't flinch when I told her the truth about my past. She just said, "You've already been through hell. You might as well enjoy the sunrise on the other side." And she was right. There's a certain power in surviving the worst day of your life and still being able to laugh again. Still being able to open your heart, even knowing it could break again. That's not weakness, that's courage. I still think about Sarah sometimes, not with anger, not with longing, just recognition. She was a chapter in my life. One I'll never forget, but I've stopped rereading it. I've stopped letting it define me. These days I wake up with a quiet kind of joy. I drink my coffee on the porch. I take calls from other vets who need someone to tell them it will get better. And when the sun rises over the hills behind my house, I know without a doubt it did. Looking back, I used to ask myself one question over and over: why me? Why did the person I loved the most become the one who broke me the deepest? Why did my loyalty, my sacrifice, my commitment mean so little to her? But over time, that question changed. Now I ask, what did it teach me? And the answer is simple: everything. It taught me that resilience isn't built in comfort. It's forged in the wreckage, in the silence after the storm, in the choice to stand up when every part of you wants to stay down. It taught me that justice doesn't always come with fireworks or applause, often comes quietly. In the form of peace, in the reclaiming of your own name, I learned that true strength isn't about how hard you hit back but how gracefully. You carry the weight of your scars without letting them harden your heart. I won't pretend I came out of this story unscathed. Betrayal leaves marks, but I did come out wiser, clearer, more me than I ever was before. And that, in the end, was the real victory, not punishing her, but rediscovering myself. To anyone listening who's gone through something similar, maybe you were betrayed. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe your world collapsed, while everyone else kept going. Hear me when I say this. You are not what someone else did to you. You are what you choose to become in spite of it. Pain will visit, but it doesn't have to unpack and stay. And one day, when you're strong enough to look at your past without flinching, you'll realize that survival was just the beginning. Growth, purpose, peace, they're waiting on the other side, so let them go. Let the lies fall away. Let the anger burn out. And step forward, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. Sometimes the greatest justice is simply living well after someone tried to destroy you.